All right, let's dive into this. How to finally win on social media without going viral. It's a pretty bold claim, right? Winning without going viral. We're going to unpack this guide, see what it's all about, especially the whole organic social media marketing thing, choosing the right platforms, making great content, leveraging AI tools, all that good stuff. And it even includes a real-world success story, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting premise. It kind of pushes back against this idea that viral content is like the be-all and end-all of social media success. The guide actually suggests that chasing after going viral can actually hurt you, lead to burnout, and yeah, just disappointment.
Huh. So it's saying that chasing viral trends, it's a recipe for disaster almost. What makes them say that?
Well, it's like, trying to build a house on sand. You might get that quick burst of attention, but it's not going to last. It's not sustainable. The guide, it really pushes for this idea of organic social media marketing, focusing on building something that lasts, through real connections and valuable content.
Okay, so organic social media marketing, that's about building for the long haul.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about building that trust with your audience and turning those followers into loyal customers, even advocates for your brand.
That makes a lot of sense. But with all these different platforms out there, how do you even choose the right one?
Yeah, it's a jungle out there. The guide emphasizes like really understanding the culture and user behavior of each platform, What might work on Instagram might totally flop on LinkedIn.
Right. Totally different vibes.
Exactly. Each platform has its own thing going on, its own audience. So you really got to tailor your approach.
It's like wearing a tuxedo to a bitch party. It just doesn't fit. So how do you tailor your content effectively for each platform? I mean,
well, the guide stresses keeping up with what each platform is prioritizing at the moment. Is it video content? Are short form posts having a moment? Knowing this stuff can make a huge difference.
yeah, that's super important because choosing the right platform, it's key for hitting the right people and getting where you want to be. But I'm curious about this whole shift from social graphs to interest graphs that the guide mentions. What is that all about?
Oh, it's actually a pretty fascinating shift. Before, what you saw online depended a lot on who you were connected to, your social network. But now it's becoming more about the content itself,
Right.
matching it to people who've shown interest in similar stuff.
So with this interest graph thing, it seems like it's a good time to be someone with niche knowledge.
Yeah.
How can someone use this to, build up a dedicated following?
By focusing on creating top-notch content, that really caters to those specific interests. It's all about understanding what your audience is passionate about and giving them content that truly speaks to them. That's where the guide's thing about content is king, but audience is queen comes in, You got to make great stuff, sure, but it's got to be great stuff for the right people.
Yeah. So you got to understand what your audience wants, what they're interested in, what makes them tick. But there's so much content already. How do you even stand out? How do you grab people's attention?
The guide suggests kind of like a two-pronged approach. Firstly, be creative, experiment, constantly learn and evolve your content. And secondly, tap into what's culturally relevant, what's trending. If you can understand those trends and work them in authentically, you can really connect with people on a deeper level.
So it's not just about being creative, it's about being relevant. But isn't there a risk of just getting lost in the noise, especially when you're up against big established brands?
Right, and that's where authenticity comes in, big time. People are tired of that super polished, picture perfect stuff, They want real, they want to connect with the human behind the brand.
So it's more about being yourself, showing the real you. Now, I'm curious about the AI section in the guide. There's so much buzz about AI right now, but how can it actually help someone who's, already feeling overwhelmed with all this social media stuff?
Yeah, the guide's not afraid to get into the nitty-gritty of AI tools. It talks about how they can be really useful for content creation, for analytics, even customer service. It even names specific tools like Runway for video editing and ChatGPT for brainstorming content ideas and writing, just to get you started.
That's really interesting. I definitely want to hear more about how to use those tools effectively. But before we jump into that, let's talk about engagement. The guide makes it clear that engagement is about more than just likes and shares, right? So what does it mean to truly engage with your audience on social media?
The guide argues that true engagement is about building a community. It's about being present, responding to comments, asking for opinions, actually using that feedback. It's about making your audience feel like they're part of something.
Building a community that seems so much more valuable than chasing those fleeting metrics like likes and shares. But where does selling fit into all of this? How do you balance building a community with, promoting your products or services?
And that's where the guide makes a distinction between selling and branding. Selling is about the immediate transaction, right? Branding is about that long-term relationship you build with your audience.
So branding is about establishing that trust, that credibility, building a loyal following. But how do you actually build a strong brand on social media?
Well, the guide really stresses investing in brand identity, crafting a consistent message, delivering on your promises, and creating a recognizable persona for your brand. It's about showing up consistently, authentically, and really solidifying your brand's place in the market.
So it's a holistic approach. You're thinking about the tangible stuff like your products and the intangible stuff like your reputation and values. But what about when you get negative comments, criticism? How does the guide say to handle negativity on social media?
It acknowledges that you can't avoid negative feedback, especially in a public space like social media. It encourages you to focus on constructive criticism and develop resilience. Not every comment deserves a response, but learning from genuine feedback, that's invaluable.
So it's about separating the signal from the noise. Now, what about diversifying your income? What does the guide say about that?
It touches on the idea of not putting all your eggs in one basket. It suggests exploring different avenues like new products, services, partnerships. That way you can expand your reach and minimize risk.
That's smart, especially with how fast things change these days. But how do you balance that with staying focused on your core brand and message?
That's where data comes in. The guide talks about using analytics tools to really understand your performance, understand your audience, and then refine your strategies.
So data can help you make those tough decisions about, what's working, what's not, and where to put your energy. What about first impressions? How do you grab someone's attention in the fast-paced world of social media?
The guide calls it mastering the art of the hook. And it really emphasizes that you've got like seconds to make an impression. Think eye-catching thumbnails and engaging opening lines for videos. Anything that makes people stop scrolling and want to see more.
Yeah, like that saying, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. But how do you make a hook that's both attention-grabbing and true to your brand?
Storytelling, that's the key. Sharing behind-the-scenes content, doing live streams, documenting your journey. That's how you humanize your brand and build those deeper connections.
Storytelling, yeah, that can definitely make a brand more relatable. But does it give any real-world examples of this in action?
It does. There's this case study about an asphalt company that doubled its revenue through TikTok, believe it or not.
Really? Asphalt?
Yeah, they just embraced their everyday work, shared fun facts, even joked about the challenges of laying asphalt. One of their videos went viral, but it was their consistency and their authenticity that built that loyal following and ultimately led to their success.
Wow, that's amazing. So it really shows that any business can find success on social media if they're willing to be real and connect with people in a genuine way.
Absolutely. And the guide also mentions Selldone as a platform that can help businesses, integrate their social media strategies and streamline their efforts. We'll definitely get into Selldone's features and benefits later on.
Sounds good. But before we move on, I think it's worth repeating the guide's final message. The only way to lose is by doing nothing.
It's a powerful statement for sure. It's a call to action saying, get out there, start creating, embrace the process, and never stop learning.
We'll be back in just a moment to dive deeper into the practical tools and strategies from how to finally win on social media without going viral. Stay tuned.
So before we get too far, I did want to circle back to those AI tools. They're not just some passing trend. They're really becoming a key part of any social media strategy that works.
Yeah, the guide really dives into these AI tools. I'm really curious to see how they can be used, practically. Are there any that really jump out at you?
There are a few that are really interesting. Like there's Runway, which is this whole suite of video editing tools powered by AI.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to remove the background from your videos or color correct them with just a few clicks.
That sounds amazing, especially for someone like me who's not exactly a video editing pro. Are there any other tools that could help, someone who's new to all this social media stuff?
Oh yeah, for sure. The guide also talks about ChatGPT, this AI tool that can help with content creation.
Yeah.
It can help you come up with ideas, write social media posts, even whole blog articles.
So even if you're not a natural writer, you can still create, engaging content. That's pretty reassuring. But visuals are important too, right? Does it talk about any AI solutions for making those eye-catching graphics?
It does. It mentions Canva, which I'm sure you've heard of. And then there's FreePic, which has this massive library of AI-generated images, vectors, templates, all designed for social media.
That's good to know. Having access to those kinds of resources, it can really level the playing field for smaller businesses or individual creators.
Exactly. And if you're, struggling to write good marketing copy or like catchy captions for social media, the guide mentions Jasper. It's an AI copywriting tool. Helps you write engaging and persuasive text.
So it sounds like AI can really, really streamline the whole content creation process. It can help people get over those creative hurdles.
Yeah, definitely.
Are there other areas where AI can be especially helpful?
Well, the guide also brings up Lumen 5. It's an AI tool that turns your blog posts or articles into videos.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's a great way to, repurpose your existing content and reach people on those platforms that really prioritize video.
That's a great idea. It can be so time consuming to create fresh content for every platform. So being able to repurpose stuff, that's a really smart move.
Absolutely. And then to make your social media scheduling easier and to really get a handle on your audience's behavior, the guide recommends Buffer. It uses AI to analyze your data and tell you the best times to post and the types of content that are working best.
So it's like having a virtual social media manager analyzing your data and telling you, when to post and what to post.
Exactly. And of course, there's Selldone, which offers all these integrated tools to support your social media efforts. It's kind of like a one-stop shop for all your online business needs.
I'm definitely getting the sense that Selldone is something worth checking out. We'll have to dive into its features and benefits a little bit later. But for now, I'm curious about the guide's definition of winning on social media. Is it all about followers and likes? Or is there something more to it?
That's a great question. And the guide's answer might surprise you. It says that true success on social media, it's not about those vanity metrics like the followers and the likes. It's about building a community, a thriving community around your brand.
So it's not just about broadcasting your message, it's about creating those connections and making people feel like they belong. That makes a lot of sense, but how do you actually build a community online?
The guide lays out several key strategies. It talks about being present, being responsive, engaging with your audience in a meaningful way, fostering that two-way communication.
So it's not enough to just post content and hope people engage with it. You got to be active in the conversation, responding to comments, asking questions, making people feel heard.
Exactly. And the guide also talks about the power of storytelling. When you share your experiences, those behind-the-scenes moments, the story of your brand, that's how you connect with people on a deeper level and make them feel like they're part of something bigger.
That makes sense. Stories, they have a way of connecting people, creating that shared experience. But what about when things don't go as planned? Does the guide talk about handling setbacks or failures on social media?
It does, and it's pretty honest about it. It encourages you to be transparent, to be authentic, even when you're sharing your struggles or your mistakes.
Yeah.
When you're open about the ups and downs, it makes you more relatable. It shows that you're human, just like your audience.
That's a good lesson. It's easy to get caught up in trying to present that perfect image online, but showing your imperfections, that can actually make you more relatable, more trustworthy. But what about building a strong brand identity? How does the guide say to approach that on social media?
Consistency is key, both in your messaging and your visuals. It encourages you to think about your brand's core values and then make sure those values are reflected in everything you do online.
So it's about creating a cohesive experience, an authentic experience that really resonates with your audience. But with so much going on online, how do you make sure your brand stands out?
The guide says embrace your unique voice and personality. Figure out what makes your brand special, what sets you apart, and then communicate that through your social media content.
So find your voice and let it shine. But what about getting people to visit your website or your other platforms? How does the guide say to use social media to drive traffic?
It recommends a strategic approach. Think about what your audience is interested in and create content that speaks to their needs, their pain points.
So it's not just about pushing your products or services. You're providing something valuable that your audience actually finds helpful.
Exactly. And it also talks about using clear calls to action in your posts, encourage people to visit your website or take a specific action.
So you're guiding them to the next step. Now, what about data? How does the guide suggest using data to inform your strategy?
It really stresses the importance of tracking your metrics, using data to make decisions. It wants you to analyze your data and see what's working, what's not, how you can improve.
So data can give you those insights into your audience's behavior, and then you can use that to improve your content and get better reach.
Exactly. And the guide also reminds us that data is only useful if you can actually understand it and use it to inform your strategy.
That's a good point. It's not enough to just collect the data. You have to be able to make sense of it.
Right.
Now, the guide also mentions being selective about which social media platforms to focus on. That makes sense. It's tempting to try to be everywhere, but spreading yourself too thin, that can backfire.
Exactly. The guide says pick one or two platforms that align with your audience, and then you can expand your reach as you grow.
That's a much more manageable approach. Now, once you've chosen your platforms, how do you make sure your content is visually appealing? How do you make it engaging?
The guide is a big believer in using high-quality visuals, makes your content more shareable, more memorable. People are visual, images, videos, graphics. They can really make your posts stand out.
Yeah, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what about influencer marketing? How does the guide suggest, working with influencers?
It emphasizes building real relationships with influencers who fit with your brand and your audience. Don't just send them products and expect an endorsement. Approach it as a collaboration.
So you're finding influencers who actually connect with your brand, who can authentically recommend you to their followers.
Exactly. And it's also important to measure your results and make sure those influencer campaigns are actually delivering.
Got to make sure it's worth it, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of delivering, the guide also talks about providing great customer service on social media.
Yeah, that's so important. Social media can be a powerful tool for building relationships and resolving issues quickly.
Exactly. The guide encourages you to respond to all inquiries and complaints, promptly and professionally. Show your customers that you care.
People expect quick responses these days, especially online. Social media gives businesses a chance to meet those expectations. But how do you go beyond just responding to inquiries? How do you proactively engage with your audience?
The guide suggests a few things. Run contests, ask questions, share behind-the-scenes content.
Those are good ideas. Contests and giveaways, those can be really exciting. They can attract new followers. And asking questions, sharing those behind-the-scenes glimpses, that helps build community.
Exactly. And it also encourages you to be creative, experiment with different types of content, see what works best for your audience.
So it's all about finding what works for you and your brand, and then always adapting and evolving.
Absolutely. And the guide also reminds us that social media is constantly changing. You got to stay up to date on the trends and best practices.
What works today might not work tomorrow, so you got to be ready to adapt and learn.
Exactly. And it's all about having that growth mindset, Be open to new ideas. Don't be afraid to try things and fail.
That's good advice. Social media is always changing, so you got to be willing to adapt, to innovate, to keep learning.
Absolutely. And with that in mind, let's talk about Selldone. This platform really embodies that spirit of innovation.
Yeah, the guide has mentioned Selldone a few times now. I'm really interested to hear more about its features and what makes it so valuable for social media marketers.
Well, Selldone is a comprehensive e-commerce platform, offers all kinds of tools to help businesses succeed online. And it integrates seamlessly with your social media efforts, so you can manage everything from one place. It makes it so much easier to manage your whole online presence all from one place.
That sounds super convenient. Can you give me some specific examples of how Selldone works with social media?
Sure. Like you can schedule and automate your social media posts right from Selldone. You can even create those eye-catching graphics and videos using their design tools.
Right.
And then share them across all your channels. Super easy.
So it takes care of a lot of that content creation and sharing stuff, which is a huge help for, people who are already busy running a business.
Yeah, exactly. And Selldone also gives you detailed analytics on how your social media is performing. So you can track your progress, see what's working, and then make smart decisions based on the data.
It's like having a data-driven sidekick, help you get the most out of your social media.
Exactly. And because it's a full-fledged e-commerce platform, it also connects with your online store, inventory, payment processing, all that stuff.
So it's really a complete package for businesses that want to build a strong online presence.
Right. It ties everything together. But like we've been talking about, tools are just one part of the equation. Ultimately, success on social media comes down to human connection, creativity, and genuinely wanting to give your audience something valuable.
I totally agree. The guide really emphasizes those human elements, being authentic, being consistent, focusing on building those real relationships.
Absolutely. It's been great, exploring all these ideas with you, unpacking this guide.
This deep dive has been super insightful. I feel like I have a much better understanding of how to approach social media marketing the right way. What what do you think is the most important thing we've learned from the guide?
I think it's that idea of shifting our focus away from chasing, that quick viral moment and instead focusing on building something sustainable through organic growth, real engagement, and content that truly resonates with people.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
It's about playing the long game, building trust, and creating a community around your brand.
exactly. So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with something to think about. Imagine someone, your ideal customer, landing on your social media profile for the first time. What feeling do you want them to have? What kind of impression do you want to make? Let that guide everything you do on social media.
That's a great question. It really brings it back to the core of social media, which is connecting with people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, the only way to lose is to do nothing. So take action, start creating, and enjoy the journey.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another exciting topic to explore. Until then, keep diving deep and keep learning.